Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the fourth episode of the Triangle Button podcast. With me today is our lovely friend Caleb. Caleb, how are you doing today, man?
Always good to be here.
Good, always good. Well, today let's get right into it. So we have the sixth episode of the Last of Us HBO show, and a lot of things transpired. And I think they got a lot of progression on the story elements, as we were both concerned last time. But tell me your overall thoughts on the episode, and maybe some of the story beats to discuss.
Dina was in this episode, which I really, really like. I love that. I love that include first thing I saw that and I was like the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme. I was all in. Um, yeah, I would say I liked the way they covered the story. I'm glad they were able to cover so much with such substance. Like they got through the entire what was the fall section of the game, which I liked. They got a lot of the major story beats down, and I was just happy about that. I was happy to see we got quality Ellie and Joel friendship time in the beginning of this. But I had some issues with it, but overall I'd say this was a great episode, and I love the cliffhanger ending.
Yeah, like I totally agree. There was a lot of things I enjoyed about this episode, and very much what you said. Anybody who doesn't know who Dina is, she is a very huge like character within the second Last of Us game, and obviously once we get into the second season of the Last of Us show, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. However, it's just going to be a major character. And it was a great addition to the story for anybody who has played it. Now, in terms of like the story beats, they covered a lot, and something I really enjoyed about this was they had Joel going through panic attacks consistently throughout. And it was just like little like spread out here and there. But just knowing that he has that anxiety and it's always eating at him, we never got that in the game. We never really got to know Joel's fears a lot. We know about like Sarah and the loss of that, but we didn't get much. And I like those little additions. I love how Ellie and Joel interact with each other, how they're telling jokes throughout. And we finally got through most of the fall section. Tommy, I was surprised at how much they covered. And they took a couple elements out, and I was a little curious of what was going to happen because I know Tage was even saying to me, Is this how they're going to leave a cliffhanger? And I'm like, I'll be honest, I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm confused, but I love each part of it. Now, I know you said, Caleb, about how there were some issues with the episode. Could you elaborate just a little more on that?
Sure, I like that they're including more character development in the show than maybe we got in the game. They're giving us some extra scenes. I always love that. It's always welcome. But I felt that Joel is showing a little bit too much emotion because in the game I
Mm,
liked that he's always acting stoical and cold, but his actions are what reveal that deep down he's going through something. You can connect the dots. You can play detective with what's happening on the inside. Whereas in the show, he has the panic attack scenes, and then he has that scene where he breaks down crying with Tommy. Um, I found that I didn't like that change as much. I liked it in the game when he shoves Tommy and he sort of says, like you're gonna play the pissy little brother, and he's using sort of anger and sort
mm.
of the emotionless, almost like a cold stoicism of, you know the roads, you know the routes, you need to take this girl, as if he was just this kind of mechanical person who really is trying to protect himself from getting hurt again. But yeah, that change I wasn't quite as fond of. And the panic attacks I'm unsure about. I'll say that for now. I didn't. I I won't say that they're bad, but I can't say that I like the change either. I need to think about that a little bit more. I could be convinced either
Yeah.
way, but yeah, it's ambiguous.
Yeah. I will say, seeing how emotional Joel got a couple times, I love the acting of Pedro Pascal. Don't get me wrong. I found that it was very uncharacter what of Joel in the game. I definitely agree with the points that you brought up. When he just starts like the panic attacks, I'm fine with because we saw even that in the first episode where it was the same situation with there's the guard, you're gonna take your daughter away, and how that's what made him act. I'm fine with that. I think that's great, like the high pitched noise. PTSD for him. Now, I find that it's it's getting kind of just like you said, it's getting a little carried away a little bit when he starts crying to Tommy, saying how I can't do this again. You know, there has been so many close calls. Like I'm not as young as you anymore. Like they got the same character beats of the story about how he wants Tommy to do it because he wants to leave, but it was a result of being too attached to Ellie and needing to separate that. Whereas this one, it came from the perspective of I don't want to lose another daughter again. I cannot sacrifice that part of myself again. And I like that element, but it was very uncharacter of Joel to be crying as much. He's very stoical. He is the older brother. And I was watching it and I thought to myself, he's almost like a younger brother in this. He's not acting like an older brother. He's acting similar to a younger brother at mentality, where he's more vulnerable. He shares with his older brother. Instead of it being like, I'm in charge, you're just going to be playing the pissy part, aren't you? Like how you mentioned, that was his
Yeah.
interaction in the game. Was he's above all, he does his own actions, and Tommy's more emotionally based. Where I felt like the roles were switched, and I don't know how I feel about that. I enjoy the acting in it. Don't get me wrong, just felt out of character for me. And something I did enjoy though was how when he does decide to take the horse to go with Ellie, he leaves it as a choice instead of it being in the game how they're having a conversation. He's like, "Well, you know, I really like this horse here. You wouldn't mind if we had it, would you?" And it's like, "Joel, what are you doing?" I like that switch of character sometimes. You know, it's just
I see what you're
giving
saying.
Ellie the
Yeah.
choice and how she's just yeah, it's like I love both sides of it. I like how Joel is more of like a kind of jokey, like I'm taking her, but I don't want it to be like a whole thing. Whereas
Yeah.
in the show, it was, you know, Ellie, what do you actually want to do? It's just like, no, Joel. And I was just like, okay, it just reaffirms like how close of a connection, even with the fight that they had. And I love that scene. It was almost picture perfect to how it was in the game. Those are my thoughts. I like to change how he doesn't fall on a piece of shrapnel. Instead, it's kind of realistic and how they broke a bat and he accidentally got stabbed when he tackled the guy. What do you think about that? Like all of those points.
Oh, I agree with most of them. Yeah, it's I think we're in agreement that they went a little too quick on the they went a little too far into the tell don't show direction. And even in the show direction, yeah, just with Joel a little too open. But as far as the scene with them, that was beautiful. In fact, I'd actually say that Bella Ramsey did a better job than Ashley Johnson of like she's a kid and she's a kid who is being abandoned by the only person she really has any connection with. And when she shoves him, and she says, "Everyone except for fucking you," and it's like, oh, she's in pain. And then Joel says his line of just, um, "You're right. You're not my daughter, and I sure as hell ain't your dad." And it's like, oh, it's so painful to her. Like you can see it just crushes her. And then he just walks away and slams the door. Um, because that just she crossed a line. She crossed a lot of lines, and I felt that yeah, that I really like that scene, and I liked it a little bit more in the game. That at this point in the, I was sorry, I would say the part of the reason I liked that Joel was more mostly closed off in the games because it was really consistent with that scene of
Mm,
Joel's at a point right now where he can see she's starting to go in the direction of becoming his daughter, and he wants nothing to do with it. And he's just like, "Take her off my hands, Tommy. Fuck you, Ellie. I'm leaving." Um, and that scene, I'm glad they kept that true to the material. As far as the yeah, as far as that goes, I also liked that they showed Ellie talking to Maria. I'm glad they gave Maria a bit more character development because she in the game you just it seems like she's just kind of a saboteur. We don't really see her side where it seems like, oh, the moment she had any time with Ellie, she immediately decided to like kind of gossip and like go behind Joel and Tommy's back and fuck with things. Um, but in
mm.
the but in this, they kind of showed that okay, no, Maria, her perspective makes more sense. I'll say. So that was interesting.
Yeah, and another interesting change. I'm not sure if this was in the game or not. Because, like, my memory's a little wonky about the game. Uh, was Maria pregnant in the game too?
No,
In it, no.
no.
See, I
That's
I
why
like that change of character. Oh, sorry. You go. You go.
I was gonna say, like, in the game, it seems like she's a bit of a she's a little bit of an annoying character where Tommy and Joel go to talk to each other for like maybe an hour. Like they just show they walk around.
Hmm.
He's showing him the dam. They like they sit down in their office for a bit, and then it's like, so Joel, how can I help you? And then Joel's like, just talking. And they have their little fight or whatever. And in that like half an hour to an hour time span, Maria meets someone completely new and is like, by the way, did you know that Joel lost a daughter in a massive like zombie shootout? It's like whoa, 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 like you just met this girl, like what are you doing, Maria? Because Maria, you can tell, is trying to like kind of sabotage things. Like she's just kind of
Yeah, because
being a
she
bit of
doesn't
a
want her husband to go out. Yeah.
yeah, she's just kind of being a shit disturber, a gossip mom, if you will. And I'm glad in this they show a she's pregnant, so it really is like um she has a lot of stake in keeping her husband around. B, she has a reason not to trust
Mm,
Joel. Because Tommy made Joel sound like a fucking barbarian, and he is a barbarian. Um, and third of
very
all,
much
and
so.
this is also kind of there. She does it by accident. She's just talking and she's just saying, "I don't trust you two," and then she lets it slip where she's like, "No, Joel's daughter," and you kind of see it's like, "Oh, she accidentally told Ellie." And then Ellie, being the shit disturber, goes and immediately like rubs it in Joel's face, and that's kind of that to me made Maria. I like what they've done with her character.
Yeah, I agree. I like just that's what I was just going to point out was how they made her pregnant, and it was an actual good narrative decision where she has a reason to not want Tommy to go out, not just because she's a possessive partner, but rather that she's a mother and he's a father, and he wants him, especially in the world of the Last of Us where everybody dies at every single step you go. There's Ravengers out there, and they will kill you for whatever you have. So for Joel to just come in and then be like, "Yeah, I basically just need you to take Ellie all the way across America to drop her off with the Fireflies." It's just a lot to ask for, especially when he has a community to look after. He has a wife to look after, a child now on the way. There's too much at stake, and that's why I was confused in the episode with how Tommy was ready to go, because it didn't
Yeah,
seem like there was going to be much of a change in opinion, and he was kind of confused as well. I don't know. It made it seem like he went to Maria and did talk to her, but not having that, I was like, well, obviously Maria wouldn't let you go. That was a part that detached me a little bit when they discussed going to Dawn. Do you agree?
yeah, yeah. I agree. I'll just say I agree. You're right. It was a bit of like Tommy went, and I was like, oh, really? You got that past Maria? Like, um,
I don't know how he
uh,
did it, but apparently then, yeah, it's just like an immediate switch then to okay, I guess I'm not going. And it's just
man's
like,
better. Man's more persuasive than I am. I tell you, like, um, yeah.
uh,
Um, so
you
no, that
know,
that I did like
hmm,
that.
yeah, I really enjoyed that too. Another small detail was how in the conversation with Joel, how Tommy was like, "You don't can't be mad at me that moved on, that I started a life with somebody, and that I'm having a child." And I liked that because all I could think about was how wonder how Joe's gonna take it about how he has a child, and especially when he says, "I think I'm gonna be a great father." And it's just like, no, don't bring that up. This man was a good father and lost his daughter. Not that he would say that he wasn't, but it's just that's probably the only thing Joel could focus on in that moment was how, oh, this is another reminder about how Sarah died, and how he almost sees her in the crowd of people as well. He has that
Hmm.
flashback of like he sees, oh, like not like obviously knowing that she's not there, but just a reminder about how she could have grown up to have her own kid, could have still had a good life. Just another sad thought to think of. I don't know. I feel really mixed about the whole like anxiety attacks. That's all I can think about. was how like it was both good and a bad element to it. You know.
I like the I honestly like I said, I do say I have been very sparse in saying that the game does things better than the show. I've always sort of held them unequal, even when they're different. But in this case, I'd say Game Joel, they leaned a little bit more into show Joel is like he's a survivor, and as much as he's tough, he has a soft side. Game Joel was like, as one person put it, he is no different than the clickers that ravage the landscape. He is a cold, heartless killer who just does what it takes to survive,
Yeah.
and he makes no bones about it. And within the first like hour, we see him like ready to torture a guy to get his gun back. Like, that's the Joel in the game. And then when he gets to this point in the game, he's just all he can do is be angry and pretend like his actions are because he's trying to focus on the task at hand rather than the fact that he's actually trying to get rid of Ellie. In the show, I felt like they were a little more. They were trying to play more to the audience, where they're trying to go for more of a sympathetic side. I think of just, oh look, he cries, and I don't want to I don't want to sound like I'm demeaning the show too much, but I don't know. I didn't like that as much as I did him in the game when he turns to anger rather than sadness. So I'd say that's actually probably a downgrade. But yeah.
Well, I don't think it takes it disrupts the show too harshly. I
Hmm.
think we could both admit that it's just a little more of a nitpick per se, and we don't mind having a more sympathetic Joel. It's just for people who played the game, it's a huge difference, and even his perspective on the Fireflies has wavered a little bit more when they're having a conversation about like Ellie's immunity and what they're going to be able to extrapolate in order to make a cure. And
Hmm.
which Ellie's saying, "Well, I don't know if it's my blood. I don't know how we're going to do it." Joel tries to calm her down, just saying, "I'm sure they'll find. I'm sure. What is it, Marlene? Marlene wouldn't send us to the Fireflies if it weren't for a reason. He has more hope in that, and I don't know if that's just because they want to make him appear as more of like that dad figure, trying to calm down a like, child to not be fearful of what may happen. It was just a different. I like those elements, and for us who played the game, it's gonna definitely like add more to the. I like how he's acknowledging his weaknesses more often, though. How he's like
Hmm.
deaf in one ear, how he's not able to be as strong, and how Ellie actually had to kill somebody or almost kill somebody to save his own life because he didn't hear. And
Yeah.
I like those beats of how they're making him like a little bit more like the man's 56. He's gonna have weaknesses, and how
Yes.
it's also I think this is why it's a great element as well, is they're trying to show he's weak because he's gonna have to be a lot stronger in various moments of where Ellie's life can be. That's what
Yeah.
I'm excited to
And
see, and
also,
that's yeah.
as I said, they also do explore
Let's
in the
here you go.
second game. Oh yeah, I was gonna say that just in the second game they explore more of that theme of he's getting old and he's getting a little bit soft. Um, like when they kind of show the idea of like, oh, Joel's more trusting than he was in the first game, and he's more compassionate than he was as sort of the gruff survivor. Um, yeah, the Joel who sees someone
Yeah,
injured on the road and says he ain't even hurt, and then like hits the gas. So yeah, no, I do.
yeah,
It is it is yeah, most of the time I've sort of brushed off the differences. It's just this episode is the first time when I've sort of seen, oh no, this I didn't like as much. It wasn't bad, but I preferred the game.
hmm.
Yeah. Other than that,
I know some oh, sorry, yeah.
I was gonna completely
Oh,
change a
sorry,
different part of the
I
episode.
was just oh, to a different part of the episode? Okay, no worries, you go.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask what did you think of the University of Eastern Colorado? Um, where they went there and they explored the lab. What did you think of that whole section? And how they explored that?
Um, it was an interesting change because I remember how something I wish they did more often in this show was picking up like, this is gonna sound stupid. This is picking up different documents, reading people's letters, hearing the audio. I wish I heard the audio tape personally. I think that would have been cool because in the game, a really cool element was how this is where they were trying to research for a cure, and they were experimenting on the monkeys and injecting them with the virus. Or sorry, not the virus, sorry, the fungi. Oh, duh. Anyways,
Yeah.
they were experimenting on these monkeys and how you saw that they were like packing really quickly, and they showed that like, oh, this is a list. They obviously moved. However, if you were to explore the university, you found out that the guy who was like the lead researcher, he was pissed off that he couldn't find it, and he was pissed off that they had to leave. So instead of killing the monkeys as he was instructed, he decides to let them go. When he lets them go, one of them bites him, and he's infected. And then he decides to commit suicide. That is a major thing. Like, it's a cool element that you learn in the game through your exploration. And I wish there was a something, because that would have been a nice element. You know what I mean? Just to investigate. I wish they picked up more letters to understand the lives of other people. Because in the game, that's a crucial element. That is why the triangle button is the main character of the game. Is that you consistently press it to interact with every single object. So
We're not. You're
I don't
saying the
know. That's
triangle
just my
button.
opinion. I wish they did that a little more often.
I was gonna say,
Sorry.
yeah. I wish they had the recording. I think that was an important aspect that we did kind of lose. Um, of just that like oh crap. It also really heads to the like in the game, there is a sense of endless disappointment in finding the fireflies. Like their whole slogan is when you're in the darkness, look for the light. And they really put that slogan to the test in the first game where, okay, we're gonna go out and we're gonna get to the fireflies, and it turns out the package we're transporting is an infected person. We're like, okay, let's just get it, drop her off, and be done with it. Then it turns out they're all dead at the state house in the game, and it's like, okay, fine, we'll just and Tess died, whatever. Just take her to Bill, and Bill will get us a car, and then we'll try to get out west. And then he gets out west to Tommy, and Tommy's like, I'm not a firefly. The base is down in town. He goes there, and we find out then for the second time. This is the second time they're really leaning into that. They've shown up at a firefly outpost, and they're all dead. And there's just this part of like, are the fireflies even real, man? Like, what are we looking for? All we really see is some spray paint around. Are we sure that they haven't been wiped out by Fedra or the clickers or something? Um, and that's why it
Yeah.
really there's that anticipation of it. It feels like looking for a legend or something. Whereas in this, they're kind of like, oh, it's a moving list. We need to go somewhere else, and it feels less I don't know, that same disappointment wasn't there of Bill being like listening to the recording of this man realizing he wasted his life, and Joel being like, oh crap, am I this guy? Am I wasting my life on a holy grail chase? Um, or yeah, quest for the holy grail. I also will say, and this seems like a nitpick, but I wish there were more zombies. And when I say that, I
Yeah.
mean in the game when they're going through university like this, there's a lot of sections of like there's some clickers through that hallway. Let Joel clear them out, and then I'll go through. Or like in that game, and I'm not saying that he needs to kill like 500 of them, but I did like that little bits of like, no, when they're out and about, like it's a zombie apocalypse. Um, and I like that they show them in the countryside when they can talk to each other and there's nothing around. But right now, there's a lot of scenes of them in cities and them in populated areas where it's just like the zombies are nowhere to be seen, and I just yeah, I can't help but wish that they maybe just cleared out a few and cleared them out as if it's just like stragglers or something like that, right? Like just um there's some infection there, really. Let me kill them.
Hmm.
Yeah, so those are the two kind of little nitpicks there. Also, I regret to inform you, but I do not think Joel will be killing any bloaters in in this
Yeah, I know. I kind of accepted that fate of reality. Just or I don't know, fantasy, I should say. Just because in the university, we both know in the game you took down a bloater, there was clickers, there was a lot of zombies. And it was also kind of
yeah,
saddening because you know that those were probably students as well that were stuck in
yes.
there. So it just added to that heartbreak of how innocent people did die. So I don't know. That was just my perspective on that, and I felt like that was lost. And also, when they see the like Ravengers come in, they just like go to the horse willy nilly. Like I'm like, wait, how did you get down without being seen? But then you get into the middle of a field, just by the way, I just want to point out. to the horse that's strapped to a tree, and you're telling me no one thought to investigate the horse strapped to a tree?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
pass it. So like that was like I was like, okay, whatever. And then you're telling me there's only one guy that does fight you? He's the only guy stood behind just to and you couldn't see him. You're in an open field. How did you not see him coming? How?
Well,
Even if
to
you're
be honest,
deaf, how?
I man, I'm criticizing like what was honestly one of the most, I'll say, like passable sections of the game. Like in the game, I will admit the like fall section of it is probably the weakest season. Um, like just as far as gameplay goes, and the university section is just like kind of more. It's not bad. It's just like it's the least standout part of the game. It's just them going through doing what they usually do. But the part of it that I found yeah, like I kind of liked in the game that they're still up in the laboratory and they see the guys down there and they're in the building, which kind of traps them. And there's that feeling of like, oh crap, like you know what I mean? Like we're on the third floor of a building and we're hearing
Yeah.
footsteps downstairs and they have to get through. I like yeah, they don't need to have the spike falling thing. But yeah, there is a side to that that's just like, um, yeah, I just decided that was still kind of like, oh crap. It was more dramatic in the game, I'll say, than one dude with a baseball bat. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
just
And well, just on top of that, it was like in the game, it was like, oh, there's multiple people, and you have to go and like crouch going through like the scientific laboratories. And that was a cool element in how you had to navigate and not get caught and kill a bunch of people. And then you got caught off guard because you went to go open a door and the guy burst it open. And that's how you got caught off guard. With this one, it's like you're in the middle of a field. You should have been paying attention. Then you're fighting this guy, you kill him, cool, whatever. But then where are the other guys? Why are the other guys like all the way over there? And then Ellie doesn't really like shoot anybody like how she does in the game. In the game, she is literally like holding you up, trying to take you towards the horse and escape this building, and you and her are trying to shoot your way out when he has a huge puncture wound in him and he's falling down. You know what I mean? That's
yes.
what it was almost too easy for them to escape. There was no like threat. And that was a very frustrating thing to see. I'm like, dude, you're telling me you couldn't add in a couple of guys shooting and her shooting at three guys? You know,
Well,
you could say
I
that's
do feel
unbelievable because she's a child. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say like I'll put it this way. This isn't this is a bit of an exaggerated statement, but I think it
Uh,
does fit. The game was about a monster living in a world of monsters. And the show seems to be about a sad person living in a sad world. And I'm going to elaborate on that. The game really made it clear that outside of the QZ was hell on earth. It was the worst place you would want to be where there were other people. Like, you went to a city and there was just like people being gunned down in the streets by ravagers trying to kill everyone and pocket their stuff. Yeah, you went to the university and there were like, just like dozens of thugs. Like anywhere you went to with a population, there were either zombies or there was someone worse than a zombie. Um, but in this show, it just seems like so much of it is there. So much of it is the quiet space and the nice, like the nice vistas and the nice peaceful walks through the town. But they don't have enough of that. Like no, like you're right. Like this idea of like there were thugs. There was like a gang of people, and there was like 12 of them, and they like filled the building as soon as you showed up. Like cities are something to steer away from. Um, and yeah, no, it feels like that. You're right. They could have heightened that a bit more. And same with infected. Like it really like they haven't really encountered many infected recently, and it just kind of felt like, damn, like I remember in the game, it was literally the difficulty of like you're here, and you see that bridge over there. You're gonna have to risk your life 9 times to get to that bridge. Or it was like you're in an elevator that breaks, and you're in the basement of a building you're probably gonna die. Like you're not getting up those 2 floors. Like everywhere has zombies. Um,
I miss that element. I miss that elevator part because that was the scariest part in the game. How you had to restart a generator with zombies who have acute hearing, and you're by yourself in the dark, and you're just trying to
yeah.
like get it through, and you have to find a key card as well. It was a stressful part of the game, and it also made it demonstrated why it sucks to be alone in this world. With Ellie,
Mhm.
up to this point, has been fairly laxed. Nothing has been too hard for you to handle. But once you go into the elevator, you realize when you're alone, there's no one to save you but yourself. And you have to go through each obstacle with the utmost scrutiny or you will die. And I like that. Now, I'm fine if they wanted to take that out. I just found that there hasn't been too much zombies in the show. Like there has been like okay, last episode of course there was a whole like
Yeah, yeah.
war of them. However, there's nothing that is too much for these individuals. There's maybe one zombie, but there's not a lot of them. And I think that was almost a fault because of the fact that they made it all the cordyceps join up through that vine. So one of them dies, all of them come. So it's almost impossible to even kill them. If you do, then you're screwed. You know what I'm saying? And I think
Well,
that
but
was.
the vines aren't
Oh,
everywhere. Like the vines aren't universal. Um, yeah, it's just I'll put it this way. When he's talking to the radio man in the first episode, the radio man says, um, outside the QZ, it's nothing but slavers and cannibals. And us who play the games are like, yes, yes, outside of the QZ is just hell on, like it is just slavers, cannibals, and
hmm,
ungodly monstrosities. This one, they're showing all of the great peaceful scenes where they're between these sort of dangerous instances, but they're not showing enough of the monsters and stuff, and some of the, or just a hint of like, just they don't need to be. I don't need Joel to be like the commando where he kills all of them, but even just them sneaking past stuff. Like if there were more scenes of them trying to get across rooftops where the streets are filled with clickers, or sorry, the
hmm.
streets are filled with runners, or yeah, more scenes where like they're trying to get somewhere and they see like a lone zombie and they're like trying to sneak past. Like episode 2, I think did a good job of showing like, yeah, no, there are zombies in this world. Um, so yeah, no, that's just I don't know. It's a criticism. It feels like we're really ragging on this episode. Even though it was a good, it wasn't a bad episode. I guess maybe
Yeah,
we're just getting
yeah,
nitpicky.
I agree. Yeah, and again, these are nitpicks. Like, and I don't think ruins the show at all. I'm not trying to bash on it and say that it was an awful episode because I don't believe that at all. I think it was a really great episode. I'm just saying there's a couple different narrative decisions in which we both feel, I think, that it kind of harms the original material sometimes. And that's fine. If they want to experiment and make some alterations with the character, we're just saying that personally, from being both fans of the game and fans of the characters, fans of the show, etc., these are going to lead to almost a narrowment of what you can do with these characters through this decision. And those deviations might be good and bad. We don't know yet. But hopefully we can encourage that it's going to be a good change. Right? I think that's a fair
Yes,
thing to say.
that's a perfectly fair thing to say. It's especially yeah, it's especially true. I think we're gonna get our how should I say our wishes fulfilled in the next episode, because the next episode is based on the winter portion of the game, which, without going into too much spoiler territory, I will say is sort of showing maybe the lower levels of what this world has become after the outbreak. And I think maybe we'll look silly after saying these things, before we see
Well, yeah,
what this world has to offer.
you never know, right? Like, it's probably going to be a really good episode if I'm being honest, because the winter season is a grueling process. I'm also so this, we're getting into episode 7. You said episode 8's going to be Left Behind DLC, right?
From what I know, the next episode is going to be covering the winter section of the game,
Hmm.
and the how should I say Yeah, the episode after that is going to be mixing in Left Behind DLC. I don't know that the whole thing will be that though. I think it's probably going to be like just blended somehow, but I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, even if they like blended in like the winter season too, because the winter, like we both know, there's a huge character that's going to be revealed, and it's going to be a key character, and I don't think there's enough free to go around because a lot of the winter section was combat and just escaping
Yeah,
and just going and fighting. So I think that it would be cool if they actually blended in the Left Behind with like the DLC with the winter section. I think that would be a good thing because Left Behind is not really something to delegate so much time into because it's not really that long of a story either. It's a cool
well,
element, but I don't know, maybe that's too much to fill in one episode, but I don't know.
maybe if they mixed it in, there's I think there's three places they could mix it in. Mix in Left Behind with Ellie taking care of Joel the same way they did in the game, where Joel is injured and Ellie's getting things to bring him, and intermixed with her on her own is flashbacks of her and Riley. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to have it, like you said, mixed in with the winter section, although I don't know how that would work thematically. I don't know how you cut from Ellie running away from a bunch of barbarians, as she does in the game, to her going on a date. Like, I don't know how those mesh together. And
Yeah,
then
it's gonna be kind of. Sorry, you go, you go.
the other place they could mix it in is with the first chapter of the spring section, because that is very Ellie centric in the game. It's that's more distant. I don't want to spoil the winter section, so I won't talk about the spring section too much. But that's the third place they could put it in.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not too sure. Like, I think I don't know. I like how the show's focusing so much time on the traveling sections between like Joel and their interactions. I do love that a lot more because in the game it was very much combat, 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 cutscene, combat. And that's how it was. Your interactions were very much within the little times of just walking. And I like how they're already incorporating so many elements. Even when he's teaching her how to shoot at the remember that thing in the field or whatever, like the little propped up thing to practice
Yes,
her aim. I like that element. And I guess I just want a little bit more in episode 9 and 10. I don't want an entire episode dedicated to the DLC. Not that it's a bad DLC, it's a really good one. I just want I don't know, still a lot of things that can fit in, I guess.
the DLC is important. Yeah, I do think in especially because they're making this after the second game has been made, so they're starting to weave them in a bit more. And I think the DLC is important for building on Ellie's character, um, where yeah, it's just to prepare us for the transition to the second season. Um, but yeah, no, I think we're in
Hmm.
agreement that this episode it's a strong episode. It covers what we got in the game. It's just the only thing is it changed some things that minor things, but still worth noting that we didn't like as much. And I'd say I'm prepared. I'm still prepared to give this episode a solid thumbs up because I found it really engaging and entertaining.
Yeah, well, definitely a thumbs up from me. I thought it was a great episode still, even with my nitpicks. Like yeah, we've already confirmed this. We both love the episode. A lot of great elements. However, a bit of a topic shift. We're going to talk about like Spider-Man, and we both are huge like love of that character, like another Sony element property, I guess. Um, so first off, I wanted to talk about first off, let's talk about the best Peter Parker because this goes into like No Way Home and about like how like we both had a lot of conversations and disagreements on who we thought was the best iteration of the character, and we can include the Spider-Man PS4 version because they're going to be releasing Spider-Man 2 very soon this year. And I'm very excited to see what they're going to do. As well as I played it on my own channel. So without further ado, let me hear your opinion on that.
Let's start with the basics. Who is Peter Parker? And I'm not going to tell his story. I'm going to just talk about his personality for a minute. Peter Parker, in my books, is exhausted, irritable, but also he's comical and he's, how should I say, he's friendly. Those are four things that I think blend in, right? Like this guy, he's nice to people, but he's also like he has those two sides to him in any comic. You get he's in a good mood, and he's making jokes, and he's shaking Robbie's hand at the office, and he's whistling his way to go on a date with MJ. And then there's the other side of him, which is covered in sand and tired, and his boss is yelling at him, and he's just saying, where do these freaks come from? He just that kind of and he's a bit of a
Mm,
dick. He's like insulting villains and stuff. Um, but I think those are the key elements of this character. As far as adaptations of that, I would say none of them are perfect. I think that I'm going to be a bit controversial, and then I'm going to get more controversial as it goes on. I think the worst one
that's fine. We got it.
is the Tom Holland Spider-Man because
I agree. I think he's the worst iteration.
I feel that he's too immature and he's too nice. Um, the Spider-Man I remember from the first comic is a police officer telling him to stop a burglar, and him saying, "Not my problem, old timer," and walking right by. Like he's always the guy.
Mm,
Like part of him is just always a little bit annoyed to be Spider-Man. I'll put it that way. Like I remember a guy in the comics who'd see that Mysterio's robbing a bank, and he's like, "Oh, let the cops deal with this. I just got back together with Gwen. Screw this garbage. I'm not fighting Fishbowl Head Man." And then he basically throws
mm,
his costume back in the closet, and he goes. And then of course later he needs to be responsible and go chase down Mysterio. Um,
yep.
and that's whereas in I'll say the Tom Holland one, it felt like a complete inversion of that character. He's a people pleaser. All he's doing is bugging Tony Stark of how he wants to be Spider-Man really, really, really badly, and he wants to be an Avenger, and he doesn't want to be a friendly neighborhood superhero. And he's tired of that. And how
Yep.
he wants to be taken seriously, which I found is kind of he's a little bit less mature. He's kind of acting like a little kid, to be honest, in that movie, rather than what I think was a little more entertaining, which was like a sarcastic, impatient teenager. I
Mhm.
found is actually the Spider-Man that I liked, because we've all been a teenager, whatever. Like you have to go to school and you have to work, and then afterwards, someone in your household says like, "Hey, can you shovel the driveway?" And you're like, "Oh, buzz off!" Just yeah, that kind of yeah, and I also feel that it really just maybe on a more serious note, deeper than his personality. This
Mm.
Spider-Man is begging for responsibility all the time, whereas the Spider-Man I know is always about someone who hates it but has to accept it, and that his heroism is the heroism is coming from a man who doesn't want to be a hero. He wants to be an ordinary man. But somewhere in him, there's just this knowledge that no, people are in danger, and even if it's he has that forced empathy where if he's not Spider-Man and someone dies, he's not able to just think, well, it's not my uncle, because he knows very well that it could be his uncle. And that someone is going through what he went through when he decided that it wasn't his problem. So I'd say, yeah, Tom Holland, I don't like very much. Toby Maguire, I'm going to roast.
Uh-oh.
He doesn't have that Spider-Man energy. I'd actually
There's
argue
your
that Toby
change. I like that part.
like
He has the Spider-Man
Toby
element.
Maguire really is like too much of a dweeb to be even Spider-Man.
He
Um,
is too much of a two. He was meant to be one though.
yeah, but just he doesn't have that yeah, I'd say he doesn't have that like I said, that same sarcastic irritability that the comic book Spider-Man had. He's a little bit too much of a little bit too much of a I don't know what we call like a sad boy. He's a little mopey throughout. He's a little whiny throughout it. Um, yeah, there's a little bit of like the oh boy, yeah, like he's just I don't know. There's not that, um, yeah, there's not that same Spider-Man energy. His jokes didn't land as well. I felt. Yeah, he wasn't as much of a comedian. He didn't really come alive when he was energetic and enthusiastic to be Spider-Man in the same way. Um, like just as an actor, I find it's hard to take Toby very seriously. And unfortunately, although he does get the core of the struggle right, which is much better than Tom Holland. That he is still Spider-Man at his core because he is reluctantly accepting that with great power comes great responsibility. Now we're going to Andrew. Sorry, also wait, I've been talking for a while. What are your thoughts on these guys?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you asked. So personally, I think we're both in consensus that Tom Holland is the worst iteration out of the three, and for my reasons, is very much like yours. When I first watched Homecoming, all I could think of was how this is not Spider Man. It's too like he's more whiny than Toby. If you're gonna bring up whininess, because
Yeah,
he's constantly like, "But I want to be an Avenger. I want to be an Avenger," and then he works the entire movie. Plus, he gets the Iron Man suit, dude. He gets it from Tony, so he doesn't even like just like stick with his own suit. He has everything given to him from Tony Stark. And Tony Stark's constantly monitoring. He's like, he's just trying to be baby Stark and not Spider Man. He can't do anything independent. And he's incredibly irresponsible. And I will get touch on that in a second. So he goes through the entire movie about how he wants to be an Avenger. And finally does get the opportunity from Stark. And then he's just like, no, I want to look out for the little guy. And it's like, okay, I see what you're trying to do here, but that should have been your entire thing. Instead, you wanted to be an Avenger, and like the only things you actually give up to be a superhero is the one moment where he's at a party and could have stayed and become a popular guy, or could have stayed with MJ, but he decides to go. That's the only point, in my opinion, where he actually gives up something. Whereas if you look at Tobey Maguire, he's constantly giving up everything he likes, and he wants to be Spider Man only because it's his responsibility. And that's kind of ties into the second one where he wants to be Peter Parker. He doesn't want these responsibilities because they take away from his life to actually enjoy anything and to live. Instead, it's just a chore to do. So like if I want to talk about more about Tom Holland, you get into the second one where then he neglects his responsibilities. He's like, "Oh, I've been Spider Man for a few months. It's been really hard. I want to go on vacation," and I get that, but Spider Man doesn't do vacations. He just does Spider Man. So he decides to put off all his responsibilities. And when he goes, he's just like, Nick Fury is like, "Dude, there's a serious threat in the world that we need to focus on." He's like, you get somebody else to do it? Like, isn't there anybody else? Could they do Thor or any other Avenger? Does it have to be me? It's like, dude, where's your responsibility mentality? Uncle Ben died, and that was his last thing he gave to you. But they changed it in this universe, as we know from No Way Home. But the point,
I will
yep,
say
hmm?
in defense that is
Okay.
getting the core of his conflict right. That Spider-Man doesn't want to be responsible, but he accepts that he has to be. So I will give it props. The second one did get it right. Of, like I said, the Spider-Man who like
Did
as
they? He entrusted the most powerful weapon to a guy he's only spent maybe 2 hours with.
I would say like in the '90s cartoon, this guy was throwing his costume in the garbage can like once a week. Like, like it was like
No,
every
he
other
didn't.
episode. He was
No,
like,
he
"I'm done being
didn't.
Spider-Man," and then someone would be in trouble, and he'd be like, and then he'd
Hold
remember the
on.
guilt of his
Hold
uncle.
on. I'm rolling up the sleeves. You cannot diss the 90s cartoon. Okay, I watched that religiously, and I know for a fact he never once threw out his suit. And the only times he would was when he actually was like mutating into a human spider. Like he
No,
never
no,
threw
sorry.
it out once a
You
week.
would he said like multiple times in that show. I think somewhat even not as seriously as we as in other iterations. He's like, I'm done with Spider-Man, and he throw it in his closet or he throw it whatever. He tossed the suit off, and then
Yeah, but they
later
were
in the
half joking. Yeah.
yeah, but it's like a half joke. It wasn't fully like it was like semi sarcastic. Um,
Hmm.
and then later he'd have to accept it. And I
Well,
do feel like
okay.
this
Like I
Spider-Man.
do get that. Oh,
Mhm.
sorry. I was just gonna say like I do get it. Like he would be frustrated. He would half joke. But the difference was that in Spider-Man 2, not Toby, like Far From Home, was
Mhm.
that he would consistently like neglect his responsibilities as Spider-Man. Consistently. He didn't want to. And when he met Mysterio, he's like, "Oh, you seem like a nice guy. Can I entrust these incredibly powerful weapons?" Because also, let's not forget, he uses a weapon to just what was it? He wanted to eliminate something that Flash did. I forget what it was. Um
Okay, that yeah, it was like a
Oh
It
yeah,
was like,
the photo of him in the bathroom, he's like eliminates Flash and almost destroys the entire bus. This is what I mean. He doesn't take the time to actually understand and comprehend what he's doing. He will just do things without thinking. And half of the time they have negative consequences on the people that surround him. And that's not responsible. And he does this repetitively. And it gets to me each time. That's why like when we both watched Far From Home, you were like, "Oh, I like that film," and I'm like, "Dude, that film was trash." Like outside of like some of the VFX they did,
I'm
but
gonna.
you're to
I
defend it. Okay,
I think there's actually a very real world concept that they don't. I'm not okay. It's not a terribly well done movie, but it is like it does have a theme there that I think is worth paying attention to. Mysterio and Spider Man are opposites in a sense.
hmm,
Mysterio cares about, and this is very true in the comics. Mysterio cares about being a hero. Capital, all capital letters, exclamation point. He
yeah,
loves it when there's the cameras on him. He has fake setups. He loves saving people, quote unquote. And he loves it when J. Jonah Jameson goes on and says, finally, a real hero in this city, unlike that Spider Man is. Um, Spider Man kind of hates being a hero. Like every time like Mysterio is doing something, Spider Man's like, Mysterio is spending all day getting dressed. He can't wait to go out and have all the cameras on him and be Mysterio and have all the attention. Spider Man's dreading it. He does not want to be Spider Man. He wants to be Peter Parker. He just wants to go to work. But that's also what makes Spider Man a real hero. That it's actually a paradox. That Mysterio only cares about the attention and he only cares about the glory, so much so that he's willing to put real people in danger and willing to cause real crime in order to get that glory. Spider Man isn't corrupted by his power, fundamentally because he doesn't want it. He doesn't even want power. He just wants, at this point, he just wants to be with his girlfriend and have enough money to put food on his aunt's table.
yeah,
Um, and which is why I think in this movie they do a fairly good job of introducing that story of, well, if Spider-Man was at a point in his life where he didn't really want to be Spider-Man, and Mysterio was at his point where, like always, he wanted to be the most glorious hero of all time, and he offered Spider-Man, that would be the trick to play. The trick to play would be, listen, kid, you don't want to be a hero. I do want to be a hero. Why don't you just give all your power to me? Um, and I actually do think that is a fairly good. It felt like the movie was addressing what I just said of the difference between him and Mysterio. So I would say, as much as it's not my favorite movie, I do think that is a pretty interesting story. Hello?
yeah. Oh no, no, no. I get what you're saying. I just find that entrusting somebody with a powerful weapon who haven't really met for a while is very irresponsible, especially when it's your last possession of anything related to Stark. And another thing I just want to touch on before we continue is how something that pissed me off was how in like Homecoming they established he wanted to be the neighborhood superhero, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, okay, hey, that's good. That's a good thing. Maybe he's like trying to actually be more responsible and dedicate his like time saving those little people. The very next movie in Avengers Infinity War, Tony will literally knight him and says, okay, look at that. You're an Avenger now. So everything that we just established in the Spider-Man movie off the face of the earth in the in Infinity War. And then like Far From Home is still an Avenger. And that pissed me off. And how even Nick Fury's like, oh, aren't you an Avenger? And then he's starting to be like, well, yes, I am. Like he doesn't. It's like he wanted this title, hates the title now. It's like they can't establish anything that they want to do, and that's what frustrates me as well from a narrative perspective. It's
Yeah.
neighborhood Avenger hates Avenger, wants to go back, and now he doesn't want anything to do with it. And it's just like, dude, you were literally just like the entire point of the last movie was accepting your responsibilities to the little people first, and then that's negated entirely, and that's frustrating. And then he doesn't even know how to use a spider sense, but it's kind of confusing because in the previous like Homecoming as well as Infinity War, they showed that he knows how to use a spider sense, but now they went back into Far From Home where he doesn't know how to use it at all. Even though the whole point of it was that his senses made it difficult for him to focus because they were always firing. But now he doesn't know how to focus it. Do you see what I mean? It's like they take two steps forward, one step back, and they don't know what to do with this character. And the only
Yes.
time it seemed like they did know what to do was in the third movie. And I'll be honest, the only reason why that film was good is because they had Toby and Andrew. And then they finally understood maybe we should make this character a little more responsible.
Well, okay. To be fair, like what you're criticizing is a character arc. Like
Mm.
the movie isn't saying you should be irresponsible. The movie is saying that he is irresponsible and he needs to become responsible. Um, which is kind of the core of like the movie wasn't saying it's good to give like the Tony Stark's technology to Mysterio, or that it's good to neglect being Spider-Man um to go on vacation. The movie was saying this is bad, so he can move and he can
Hmm.
move in the direction of responsibility, which I'd say is the core of Spider-Man. And I'm glad they do that. That they actually have the Spider-Man theme, even his first arc, like in like the first like Tobey Maguire movie, they show a story of first thing he does is he doesn't want to be responsible. He wants to be a wrestler and he wants to make money and he wants to get the girl. And then he learns that oh wait no, I need to go save people. And I think they're getting that. I think they're getting that right in the Tom Holland movies. It's just that they have I have a
But
lot
here's
of
the
okay.
yes, okay, but here's this is what I'm saying though, is that you want to say, like I get what you're saying, is how the first one they have that similar arc. I think the problem that I found with this trilogy, and they're going to make three more. Why do you need three movies to establish this moral dilemma, like of responsibility? To me, like I get it, they wanted to like have him in more movies, but why he's already Spider-Man, but you just go back and you're like, well, no, he's not Spider-Man until the end of No Way Home when he strips the tech and eliminates everybody's knowing of his identity. I'm like, really? Did you need three movies to do that? Couldn't you just like in the first Spider-Man film, Toby understands who he is as soon as he realizes through his actions of being selfish and only wanting to seek power, money, and girls and everything, he got somebody killed. It was through that little moment where that criminal was leaving that he decided to do nothing because it wasn't his problem. And that killed Uncle Ben. That movie does such a great startup to the Spider Man character and his origin story. And it almost frustrates me that, okay, we already know what happens, but you're telling me that Uncle Ben's death really did nothing to Peter in the homecoming. They made it a comic book. Sure. But why did you need 3 films and then have Aunt May die in the 3rd one as she's now the telling him with great power comes great responsibility? Do you see what I'm saying? It's
It takes a long time to get to that. I will admit that took a while.
but why does it
Yeah.
have to take so long? Like he's not an idiot. Like he should it's like I don't know.
That's why I did feel like he's a little just generally like too young in those movies. Like it feels like I like Spider-Man more when it's like Uncle Ben died 7 years ago and he's more in the groove of it and
Yeah,
applying these
like
things to the real world rather than I agree that like it takes him like the whole trilogy to get through high school and get to like the basic beginning. It takes him the whole trilogy to get where he was like halfway through the first Toby movie. Um,
mm,
so no, you're right on that. For sure. Which is why I still think like he is my least favorite Spider-Man.
yes. And now
Yeah,
now we're gonna go on. It's like sorry, I felt like I talked for a while too on
no,
that
you're
about
right.
Tom Holland. There's so much to say about that character.
Interesting theory that I'm going to run
Yeah.
by you on the Spider-Man lore, and it relates to
Okay.
this.
Yeah. Sure.
The villains he faces, especially the Sinister Six, but there's the villain Spider-Man faces, um, all mirror who he was before the death of Uncle Ben. And you might be saying it's like, well, how so? But so Electro gets powers, and what's the first thing he wants to do with them? It's revenge, it's anger, it's to get back at the bullies, right? It's immediately this like I'm powerful, I can mess with the people who messed with me. And then you think it's like, well, what did Peter do? First day he got his powers. he made a mockery out of Flash at school, right? Like he beat him up. He in the and it's different in different ones. Like in the Toby ones, he kind of beats him up. In the Andrew ones, he plays basketball and shows him up. But the message is the same. Like he basically uses power as like a tool of wrath.
Yeah.
You look at a character like like Mysterio. What's the first thing he wants to do with power? Showbiz, baby. Like he's got that immediate lust for to have as many eyes on him as possible. Basically, fame and admiration, and the glory of being a TV star, which is what, if you look at it, it's what Spider Man's the first thing he did. And then you go, yeah, and then you can take it a step further, and you can even say like Sandman with his motivation that he cares about his family first, and that's all about just getting the money to secure his family. That also reflects in Peter in that there's a part of him that only wants to help Aunt May and Mary Jane. It doesn't care about the rest of the city. Um, and I don't know. I just found that's an interesting thing to look at when Spider-Man meets a villain, to see how the villain's failures are Peter's lessons. But yeah, that just seems relevant. Yeah,
Yeah, of course. Like it is like a interesting thing to like have like that mirror, and like that's why like you even pointed out in a lot of it like Spider-Man origin stories, he needs that point where he almost uses his power for bad because of like how he's gone through so many tribulations within his own life. And I think that's a very important element. Like he needs to have that before his understanding of responsibility, and to be humble about what he has and to give back to the community because of his great power. And that's why I like Toby's as well as Andrew's iteration. I feel bad for Andrew a lot of the time because he did not have a lot of you know he only got through two movies. He never got a third one, and I felt like his character was kind of shunted a little bit. I like how in the first one if you want to focus more on the responsibility aspect, do it like the Amazing Spider-Man one, where it took him halfway through the movie to finally understand responsibility, because he had a vendetta against everybody who had the blonde hair and that star on his wrist. Right, that's what I like about it. He was vengeful. He wanted this guy to pay, and that's why it's so important in that conversation with Captain Stacy and Peter at the dinner table, how they're going back and forth about how, well, I heard he saves people. Oh yeah, he attacks the same guy with blonde hair consistently. He has a vendetta against him. And how that almost makes Peter realize, well, he just doesn't understand. I think he does save people. And it's only that moment on the bridge where he is saving that young child and seeing it, like the admiration and love that father and son have with each other. That's when he realizes this is what it means to be, because he's kind
yeah.
of an asshole to other criminals in that. You remember when he was webbing that guy up against the wall? He got him and the like, he shot up his wrist and his like pants. I think he was making fun of him, and then shot him in the crotch with his
Well,
webbing.
then that's
There,
actually,
there was a lot of like, it was kind of torturing a guy. It was kind of scary to watch.
well, that's the thing. Andrew is actually kind of close to
Sorry, what?
Spider-Man in the comics. Andrew is really close to Spider-Man in the comics in that respect, where comic book Spider-Man is like,
Hmm.
he's, how would I put it? Like he's kind of like he's impatient and he's like snarky. Like he is both of those things. Impatient and
Yeah.
snarky. Sometimes during the daytime, a lot of the times, I don't know why, but it's just like during the daytime, he's swinging around, and it's the Spider-Man who high fives people on the street before he goes back up, and does backflips and says "Hello, New York." Like
Mhm.
there's that Spider-Man, and then there's the Spider-Man who kids look up to when he high fives, and there's the Spider-Man who love saving people and telling them they're going to be okay. But then yeah, there's also the Spider-Man who sees that Boomerang is like trying to rob the convenience store, and he's like, "Really, third time this week, man?" And then he drops his pants, then like kicks him into a wall. Like there is also that guy. So I feel like yeah, that
Yeah.
Andrew was really true to the Spider-Man character that we know and love from the comic books. Even a little bit more than the game Spider-Man from the PS4 title.
Yeah. I definitely like that element of Drew, how he's more of a villain in the first Spider-Man because he's like so obsessed with that revenge aspect. And that's why I love the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. You mentioned the comics a little bit. How he's kind of an asshole as well. And he's like, oh, do I really need to? And he just focused on doing what he wants to. And it's not until it takes him a little bit of time before he realizes, even after the um Uncle Ben's death. And I'm just saying, I like when Spider-Man does that. They focus on that element because that's an understandable form of grief. There's that anger and wanting justice for what is.
Yes.
And
Um,
yeah, with Andrew, it was, until he saw that moment on the bridge, that's when his character changed to be the responsible Spider-Man, to taking care of his community and actually enforcing what he thought he was. What he was saying originally was just an illusion of justice, of how, no, he does save people, but it was all in hatred and wrapped up in vengeance. And he's not Batman, he's Spider-Man. And that's the key difference between the two characters as well. And
yes.
I know obviously the powers do something, but main point I'm getting to is that Spider-Man is this like fun-loving guy, but he wants to save people. He's very optimistic. He makes jokes all the time, and that is very true to the character. And a lot of people didn't give Andrew that chance. A lot of the time, they said he was too good-looking. He's too cool, and his suit sucks. I don't think his suit was that bad. I think people trashed on it. I know you mentioned the yellow lens all the time. I think the lens makes sense. It's practical for how a teenager would make the suit. He just like puts a paint on top of latex, like the actual printing suit on, and then puts glasses on top of it. So that's his visor because he doesn't have the tech visors. I didn't mind that iteration. I thought it was cool and it was grounded like they wanted to. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. The Andrew Garfield Spider-Man did get in the first movie. It did get the core of the character. Second movie, as not quite as much, but still kind of got that. It got the Spider-Man all of the elements of his personality right. Um, I would say that I just there's a lot of other problems with those movies, but those are off topic from the core of the Spider-Man character himself. Um, and I think that yeah, they both were. I honestly think that both the Andrew and the Toby trilogies are pretty, or yeah, the Andrew duology and the Toby trilogy rather were both really really strong.
I
Yeah,
was
I
gonna
just
say,
feel
yeah.
yeah. Well, I heard what they were gonna do with the third one about him like bringing people back to from the dead, and I'm like, okay, this is glad it didn't happen.
Oh, let's not
But
forget it was Oscorp that developed this apparent like
yeah,
cure for death and how they resurrected not only Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy, they resurrected Captain Stacy, and then Peter's like, I don't know if I should be doing this, and then they resurrect, I think, Green Goblin. I don't know what they were doing with that. It was just everybody bring back for the dead. Aunt May, like the actress who played her, was like, "This is stupid. Why are we doing this?" But yet Captain Stacy was like, "Hey man, if I get more roles with more money, I don't give a shit what we do."
yeah,
That's all he was interested. He just wanted the money from it. But like,
yeah,
because he got a lot of money just to stand in the second one. He didn't even say anything. He just stood and looked
um,
because I was his Peter's PTSD, and I don't mind Peter having PTSD in the second film. I know a lot of people hated this element. It was a reminder of what he lost, right? And again, another like he didn't have it of Uncle Ben because Uncle Ben was a freak accident. But this one was like he was unable to save Captain Stacy, and
but
he's
wait,
worried about not being able to protect Gwen.
I would flip that. I think he's more guilty about Uncle Ben
What were
dying
you gonna
and
say?
sort of. I was gonna say I would invert that. I think that I'd say that Uncle Ben's more of a guilt thing, and Gwen's and Captain Stacy is more of just, hey, you made a promise to me before I died. Um,
Well,
but yeah,
yeah, there was that element, but it was also like he died in battle right beside Peter. That was a major thing. He wasn't able to
yeah,
save Captain Stacy, and I find that he was consistently worried about not being able to protect one because that was the whole reason that they made that promise too. So,
yeah,
also, I kind of didn't like how in the first Spider-Man, when she's like, "Don't make promises you can't keep," and then he whispers to Gwen, "Those are the best." It's like, why would you say that? You know that was a promise from our dad. You know what I mean? It's kind of an
yeah,
asshole move to say, but that's okay. Whatever. We can get over that.
yes,
I don't know. The second film, I get why people didn't like it. However, let's look at the positives. The web swinging scenes were beautiful. Sue was beautiful. And yes, there was a lot of stories to go through, but they did a good job with what they could do.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I feel bad that the film did not get a third installment. It makes me very sad because I like that iteration of not Andrew, sorry, of Peter. So
yeah.
I don't
What
know.
do
And there was
you,
also oh sorry.
sorry, I was going to
Oh
ask
no, you go.
because I have to bring this one in. Um, this conversation isn't complete without these two mentions. I feel.
Okay.
Um, where do you feel that video game Spider-Man fits into this as an adaptation of the character? And the second part of this question is: do you feel that the OG Spider-Man is better than the adaptations?
Could you just repeat the second part? You kind of froze up a little bit.
Oh darn. Yeah. The second part was, and do you feel that the OG Spider-Man is the best version of that character, or do you feel like the reboots of him and the adaptations of him are better?
So when you say OG, do you just mean like Toby Maguire, or do you mean
No,
like
no, no.
'90s?
Spider-Man was not invented in 2002. No, 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 no,
Yes,
no.
I know, but you say OG. I'm like, do you mean like all the way back into the '60s?
1962, the Amazing Spider-Man comic book run. Yeah, I'm talking about comic book Spider-Man. Do you feel that he's better in his movies and games than the comics? And what do you think of where do they fit on your ranking?
Um,
Where do Spider-Man and or I should say, sorry, I got to be super nerdy. Not the Ultimate line. Where does the Amazing Spider-Man and where does the Spider-Man video game fit into your ranking?
okay. Um, well, first, we're just gonna discuss a little things on the Spider-Man game version. I know a lot of people love that character and that like how he's a little bit older and he has experience as being Spider-Man for many years. I don't mind him. I wouldn't say he's the best though. I know he encapsulates a lot of the character's traits. So I think if you wanted to say like best overall, sure, if you're comparing it to the '60s version, I don't- that's far off. I don't know. There's just something about that version of the character that I just don't fully bond with in the game and feel like that's Spider-Man, you know? I think he does a lot of like the similar traits. I don't know. I just feel a little detached from that character. I don't know how to explain why that is. Um,
It's
I mean,
his
we could
lack of
always talk about like how the character, huh?
It's his lack of anger. That Spider-Man is perfect, except the fact that he's not grumpy enough. Like Spider-Man has to be grumpy sometimes, and that one is never grumpy, that's the only thing that makes him not a perfect Spider-Man in my books.
I mean, yeah, and I feel like he makes a lot of mistakes as well. That it's like, dude, if you just like put a little time into like just thinking about this, you could have avoided a lot of your issues. And maybe that's just to go in about how he's responsible to the fact that like he can't divvy in all of his time to do that. Um,
Hmm.
like for example, like when he's working with Doc Ock and how he's like, "Oh, this is unstable. You really shouldn't be wearing this." And he's like, "I'm fine, Peter." And then he doesn't do anything. He's like, "Okay." And then you just see the destruction occur, you know? And I don't know, it just kind of frustrates me a couple times. And I always want to talk about Miles Morales because a similar thing happens that I just realized in my playthrough. Miles a lot of the time will be like, "No, please." Oh, sorry, what?
Oh, I was gonna say we're bringing Miles into this. I feel like Miles is his own because he's got his own set of stuff. Like he's a different. You're
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I just was like kind of like using like Miles as an
Uh,
example of like what I mean with this character as well, is how he lets things
mm,
happen and transpire when he could have prevented it. Like one of the things I hated was when spoilers for anybody who play these games, by the way. When he's going to stop Finn, he will say, "No, Finn, don't. There's something that will happen." Pauses, doesn't say anything. And then she'll be like, "It's too, you're just trying to stop me." And then it takes him like 5 different attempts before he's like, "It'll destroy all of Harlem." And it's like, "You're just trying to lie to me again." You know what I mean? And it's just like it's just stupid. Like, and he'll won't fight her. He'll just kind of just talk. And as the same with the Spider-Man, I hate how much he talks and does not fight to prevent things from happening. Does that make sense? It's almost like how Marvel characters do things as well. Or the
Wait,
Flash. The problem with the Flash is a good example of that.
okay, wait, okay, wait.
What's up?
Oh man, we gotta qualify the question now. Like, that means he's not the best Spider-Man in universe, but I do think it still makes him a good Spider-Man character-wise. I know it sounds confusing. What I mean is that you're right. You're pointing out flaws with the character, but they're not flaws with the writing of the character. I think I like that he makes mistakes. I don't like perfect characters. Like I don't like Captain America comics.
Yes. Like
They're Captain America
I
is the right thing,
hmm.
and I don't like that. I do like that this Peter is like, yeah, sometimes he's not quite living up, and he has to live with the facts that again he could have done something, but someone got hurt. Um, so yeah, I'll say him. I will say I still like him. I still like that he has those shortcomings.
Okay. Yeah, I agree to a point, of course. I know like that's the purpose. I think it's just frustrating to have happen because all I could think about is like in the Flash show for anybody who's watched that. There's so many scenes where it's like, stop, there's nowhere to run. And then he talks for 5 minutes and the guy can easily escape. You see what I'm saying? It's like grab the gun, grab the gun, grab the gun. It doesn't do it. He just talks, and
Why not
that's
just use the Flash? Like I really don't get. Yeah, no, you're right.
yeah, it's like you literally have one of the best abilities in the world and you're using it to talk. You know what I mean? That's
Well, it's like
something that's frustrating and oh sorry, you go.
I was just saying, even with the Flash, like he can search every inch of a city within like half an hour. Like I don't, where are you
And he
hiding
just
from this?
stops. They'll
Yeah,
escape on foot. And it's like, how? They can't get very far. Get off your ass and run. Like,
like
what
I'm
the
thinking, like
fuck are
if
you
he ran
doing?
away in like a plaza, Flash could have searched every aisle of every store within like 4 blocks, no problem. Like he's the Flash. Um, yeah, no, you're right. You're right there, sir. The Flash is a
I,
is a little too flawed. Um,
yeah, that's how I kind of sometimes feel with Peter. Like, because Peter and like the Flash, or should I say Spider Man and the Flash, are kind of meant to be very similar in how they quip. And
yes,
sometimes their quips get in the way of actually stopping the characters. And I think that it personally, I don't think their quips should stop them from beating the villain.
you're right.
You're fine.
You're
You're
right.
fine if you want to quip during the fight, but don't let that stop you from actually solving the problem. And I
Yeah,
feel like the PlayStation versions will often do that too much, where you could easily defeat these characters. Like you're telling me, like when you play as Spider-Man during the game, you think he could just fucking just smoke Doc Ock with one hand in the
yeah,
face, and he would just be done for.
yeah. You're right. Spider Man's pretty strong. Like, yeah,
Yeah, this man could just easily smoke him. Like, and yeah, he's like, Doc, please, you don't know what you're doing. The suit, it's taking control. Okay, that is like one of their greatest weaknesses in the game.
yes.
And if you played Miles Morales, you would know too. Like in the final section, do you know how repetitive the dialogue gets?
Oh, no, I'm not defending the Miles Morales dialogue. Don't put me in that position. I'm not playing devil's advocate for that game's crappy dialogue. Um,
Hey, both have crappy dialogue at
they,
times.
Miles is worse. Love the character, but in that game, I had some
Uh,
problems with that game.
yeah, I know you had a couple of problems, but like during my playthroughs.
Yes, but okay. I was gonna say I do like the Spider-Man has a line in the game, the PS4 game, where he says, Chief Watanabe says, "You have 7 broken bones," and then he says, "I have 199 that aren't broken," and then just keeps on swinging. And
Yeah,
I really like that. He's got that Spider-Man grit, that Spider-Man willpower. He is doing his quips. He is a community leader. I really liked. He is the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. This guy's helping homeless folks find their lost pigeons. He's helping people, like out of car accidents. He's saving people from fires.
mm,
Yeah, he's meeting copycats who love him so much they want to be him, and he has to send them home. Like it's just, um, yeah, the Spider-Man in this one I really like.
Yeah,
Um,
let's not forget about how I sorry, you said like he stops car accidents and all I can think about is that famous comic where he literally injures everybody on a bus to save one kid and it's like
yeah,
my man, you could have just picked up the kid. like, like they
yeah,
reenacted that in Andrew's Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well. And I just thought that was stupid funny. I also want to
yeah.
mention really quickly about Toby's character because I have a deep appreciation for that version, as we both know. We grew up on Tobey Maguire and that Spider Man. Not only is the suit amazing, the whole first movie is just great. That final, like the fight scenes were very gritty and like, I appreciated that so much because a lot of the amazing Spider Man, you know, Tom Holland Spider Man, all of them, they kind of lack that grittiness to the character and how he
Yeah.
gets beat up very often.
Yes.
And that's probably because Raimi is a horror movie director, so he's
Mhm,
obviously very accustomed to having gore in his films, and they almost push that PG-13 rating, and I love. I want to
mhm,
see that more, and they pulled back
mhm.
on it in the other two films, which made me sad, but I understand. However, when we get into the second film, that was I think the best Spider-Man movie of all time, with how he doesn't want to
Yeah,
be Spider-Man and the moral
that
dilemma inside of him.
it was
Yeah.
perfect. That was the perfect Spider-Man. I have nothing bad to say about that movie. When he's on the train, that was the perfect Jesus crucifix. He is
Mhm.
sacrificing himself to save the city. He learns all of the lessons of responsibility. That's just if you've seen that
Yeah,
movie, you know
I
what I'm talking
agree.
about.
That film was perfect. Now let's get on to the third film because I know you have a lot of gripes with that one.
Wait,
Um,
answer my wait. You got to
oh,
answer my
sorry.
comic question. Um,
Mhm.
what do you think of comic book Spider-Man? Do you think he's better, equal, or worse than his adaptations?
We're going based on the '60s. He's worse.
Ooh.
We're going based on um, I don't know. There's so many different iterations. There's like
Or just
amazing,
any one.
spectacular,
Like
ultimate.
it doesn't have to be the 1965.
In
Just that.
general, I think the comics sometimes are just equal or fall under. And that's
Mm,
because I don't mind the comics, I don't. But if we're looking from when it first started, yeah, he was very good for the time. But as you progress, he has ups and downs. He's like very divided. And nowadays, the Spider-Man character is just fucking trash in terms of comics because the comic industry has fallen off at this point. And
yeah.
I think we could both agree on that with a general consensus. Like Marvel as an industry of comic book just I don't even know what the fuck they're doing anymore. Last I recall, they were releasing what was that new comic book line where it had like safe space
Oh,
or
yeah, Safe Space and Screensaver. Yeah, my
great. Oh yeah,
yeah.
ooh, those are good characters. All right,
Screensaver was exposed to their dad's toxic internet gas, which
internet gas,
turns which turns them into an internet powered person. I don't know, man. Which
or
don't.
how they had like their like she's a plus size character and how her power she doesn't have any. She just carries a backpack. That's magical.
I don't know,
Well,
man. I just work here.
couldn't you give that backpack to somebody who's maybe a little more like why'd you give it to the most powerful guy in your group or girl? Like, why do you have to hold on to it? What's your power then? Like you're like apparently like the child of Miss was it Miss Marvel? Is that it? I don't know. It
I
was
don't
just
know.
I never got that. Point being that I'm getting to is that the comic book industry has fallen off and they're struggling very immensely. And how the
Okay.
Spider-Man characters has also been ups and downs depending on the time. '60s iteration. Okay, I will say it's a classic. It's a classic. And there's nothing wrong with classics. Personally, me going back and reading it, it might seem a little cheesy at times because that's just the time that they were made. They had to make it appropriate for the general audience at the time. I really like the Ultimate Collection, as you know. I love the art style, the heavy ink that they used. The whole art style was what I loved. And the introduction to characters because there was the whole Ultimate Universe. And it was
Yeah.
similar, it was like a revamping of the entire Marvel Universe that I appreciated. And I liked seeing all those, even big bulky Captain America. You remember how who was the Rob something that drew
Oh
him?
yeah, yeah,
We know about the big chest boned
yes, yes.
Captain
Everyone was.
America.
Um, yeah, I like how you're like, I don't know, the '60s is a little cheesy. The 1990s, on the other hand, it's like, oh, okay. Like,
Well,
I don't know
I
about the
like
'90s.
I don't know. 90s and 2000s tried to be more dark, and that ended up being cheesy as well.
Yeah,
And
I think, yeah, yeah, no, you're right. I still there. I think Spider-Man has a lot of great comics, but no, I see your point. There's also a lot of not so great Spidey comics.
yeah,
Um,
and that's why it's really difficult to stay like when you're like comparing the entirety of the comic industry of
yeah,
Spider-Man to the movies. I'm like, well, there's so few movies, so many comics, and the comics don't have a general consensus of good, bad, or hey,
yeah.
that's my point that I'm trying to make. So I would say that I mean, with I'll give it credit where credit's due. They made the character, and without that, there would be no movies. So, no, in comparison, though, you know, they're better than Tom Holland. That's what I will say. They're better than Tom Holland. Okay,
Oh,
because
okay.
and again, not shitting on the actor. I think the actor's really good. He has a lot of range when it comes to his movies. Sometimes, um, I just feel like he was too kiddie for the role, and he didn't get responsibility very. We already had discussed why I
Yes.
disliked it. However, I want to get on to Spider-Man 3. I don't care what people say. That film was hilarious. It was amazing.
No one's saying it's
And
not hilarious. No one is saying that it's not a
but people
funny movie.
shit on it and say it's the worst Spider-Man. I don't think it's the worst. I put that very high in my rankings. Seeing Jazz Hands Peter with the symbiote, I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye. I love that. Like just Jazz walking down the street. Loved it. Now I will say it gets a little funny at times. For example, when they built up Harry Osborn to be the big villain of this, and he was quickly put to the side role of this movie, which I found was hilarious. And I like how Peter takes him out, no problem. This man gets amnesia from the worst fall I've ever seen in a film. It's everything on the head. Like, can we just take into consideration that point in the movie where he pulls a tripwire, he hits the tripwire, hits a beam, and then hits another beam on the way down, and then hits a dumpster and falls onto the ground,
That was a little cartoony.
and he still survived.
He hits everything. Um,
Boom, dun, 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 dun.
yeah,
Like it was so
they did
hilarious.
the bonk sound from the Flintstones, like the bonk. Like yeah. Um, but
And not only
no.
did he do that once, he had it like okay, there was two other instances because he gets back, he has his revenge. He's like threatens MJ, and we get the cry scene. However, it was the one part is when he's and when she kissed me. It's always how she used to kiss me.
Okay, well, here's
Strawberries.
the thing.
This
Here's
is
the
like I love that. But
that
yeah,
that movie. All the actors were just kind of having fun and being way like over the top. Um, Toby was. So was what's his name? Franco. So was
James
pretty much
Franco,
the only.
who's banned
Yeah,
from Hollywood now.
yeah. I was gonna say pretty much the only one who wasn't being ridiculous was Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane, but no, I'd say that movie. He's just sort of juggling villains. Like if you watch the scenes of it, it's like a rotation of like he'll knock out one villain, and then the next one will show up, then he'll knock out them, the next one will show up, then he'll defeat them, and then they keep repeating until eventually he has to fight them all at once. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh wait, Harry's on my side now. Okay, let's fight. Um, which is it's a little crowded, and the writing is a little like convenient. I'll say at times, like the whole like Harry got amnesia because we need him to fight it.
Amnesia's always a bad plot. It's always a
Um,
bad plot.
amnesia. Same with honestly, like the even like the meteorite plot was kind of like that's a lazy way to introduce a villain of just like he was sitting in the park one day when an alien showed up, I was like, okay, man, like doesn't really. His other villains sort of arose from the story. They didn't just get tossed into it by the writers, because the studio rather told them they had to have it. But
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple cheesy stuff too. For example, like the almost infamous line where like Flip Marco falls into this sand pit, and then one of the scientists is like, "Oh, it seems like there's an increase in mass here. Oh, it's probably just a bird. It'll fly away." It's like, maybe if you just took the time to check to make sure that it was a bird, we could avoid a catastrophe and mutate the shit out of it. Like,
by the way, that's not like with science experiments. I think we both know that like if you're doing an experiment with something and all of a sudden something just falls into it and you can't even see what it is, you don't just say, "Well, do," and do your
yeah,
experiment anyways.
like, there's so many ethics violations and carelessness that is criminal neglect, like negligence. Oh my god, I can't say that word. You know, it's
Hmm.
criminally negligent, and
Yes.
I just thought that was there's so many funny points. Flint Marco as like for like Sandman. I forget the actor's name, but like the actor who played him did a phenomenal job. Like, and the look of Sandman was exactly like the comics, and I didn't mind that. I actually appreciated how that was almost like identical. Um,
Yeah, the
the whole
Thomas H.
subplot with trying to get back to his daughter. Oh, thank you, Thomas Hitchens. Yeah, he did a great job in that role. And how like he cares for his daughter, wants to get back to her, and that's why he wants to get the money to help the cure for cancer. Those are all like understandable, villain plot lines, and I didn't mind it. I thought he was a good character. I mean, I wish I got a little bit more of Harry personally because he just keeps getting his head fucking destroyed. And also, let's not forget how Peter, not like when he fights Harry, he not only throws a fucking bomb at his face, but before he does, he says, "We're such a disappointment. Father hated you." And
Y-
it's just ooh, like
Yeah,
he was
like Harry
embarrassed by you.
Jr.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you gonna cry? Just like that moment, I was like, damn, Peter just went full like edge mode,
that was cool. I love that
And
scene.
oh,
Everything about
that,
it. Yeah.
yeah, the,
The jazz fight in
I
the
like the
apartment.
jazz in it personally.
Dun bum bum bum. Wah! They're like trying to stab each other. Yeah. No, that was a good fight.
Yeah, I would say jazz fighting. There's just something about it that just makes it unique, and it makes it so much more engaging. Like I know people flagged on it for the jazz. I liked it. It was a
I
cool
liked it.
element, and let's not forget the. Sorry, what?
I didn't say anything.
I
You
didn't hear
you
what you said. Oh,
you
sorry. I thought you said something. Um. Oh, okay. No worries. And I felt bad for Eddie Brock too. That focus on how Eddie Brock loses everything around him. He loses his job at the Bugle because he obviously copied a photo from Peter Parker's history of photography,
mhm.
changed the suit color, which anybody could have done. But I
Really dumb.
like that. Huh?
Really dumb. Like
Yeah,
the
like
dumb.
it's like all he did was invert the color and take out a couple things from Photoshop. And it's like, really? Okay, fine. But Peter takes like not only like embarrasses him in front of the Bugle, he takes his job and takes his girlfriend, who even though it was only after two coffee dates, he obviously had a strong emotional connection with Gwen Stacy. And then he does this dance number with Gwen Stacy, which that was a phenomenal one itself. Like I was kind of confused when I was watching it because I'm like, what the fuck are we watching? Where it just breaks into this jazz number and how he's like playing the piano, trying to embarrass Mary Jane.
Yeah.
Like I get why they did that. They wanted to show that, let's embarrass Mary Jane more for dumping us, I was fine with that
Yes.
element. And when they had him accidentally hit Mary Jane, though that
Yeah.
was a strong emotional beat. So I think that a lot of people I get the goofiness. There was a lot of that. However, there was a lot of strong emotional beats that people
Yes.
often, forget when they're watching that film. But it still ranks highly for me. So if I were to rank them, from I would say the Andrew gets a slight head over Tobey Maguire. A
Okay.
little bit, just a little bit, because I think the first one, like, although I'm not the biggest fan sometimes, I think they aced the character. Like, just seeing like Andrew on screen makes it worthwhile. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I would put Andrew on top. Then I would put Toby as a very, very, very close second to Andrew. And then I would
Mhm.
choose the comics. Then I would choose Tom Holland's.
Oof. Those are fighting words. You're not even putting the game in the list?
Oh shit! I forgot about the game. Sorry.
Oh,
Uh,
you forgot.
the ga-
It's not even rememberable.
I
Ooh.
know. I just forgot that was a listing order. Sorry. I would put the game third. Then I would put the comics. Then I would put Tom Holland. Or not? Yeah, Tom Holland Spider. What would you
So
do?
you're Andrew, Toby, game, comics, MCU. Okay. That's a reasonable order. I might have it more like I don't even know. They're all good in some ways and bad in others. Like there's no one of them's perfect. I feel like I'd probably put the comic book Spider-Man. And we're talking about movies. I like the Toby ones, like those are the best, but he's also the worst part of the best movies, in my opinion. Um, so I would actually have to go with like
Yep.
probably like game and comics are tied for one. And then after that, I'd probably go Andrew, Toby, and then I think we both agree that Tom Holland's. Sorry, my man, you're going. You're getting the last spot.
I,
Um,
I will say, like, No Way Home was a great movie, but I felt like it was only good because of the nostalgia effect. Took those
yeah,
out, it would have been a shitty ass movie. The only thing that I agreed with the Tom Holland character in that movie was they made everybody forget his identity, which, further, again, Tom Holland says his identity consistently. He always takes his damn mask off, and that's a piss off in itself. Like,
yes,
no wonder you're getting caught with your mask because you just keep taking it off every time it's convenient. Like, I'm wanting to watch Spider Man, not Tom Holland, you know? So
yeah,
I like how they make him forget, and then he finally makes his own suit. And I'm like, this is the only sense of responsibility. And also, the inciting incident in the trip, like No Way Home, is stupid as well. Instead of just talking to the guidance counselor about how, hey, listen, the entire world's against me right now for an event that's incredibly controversial and not even vindicated at half the time. So why don't we instead put my friends in if you don't want it, or like put all of us in because of it? And then the guidance counselor's like, yeah, sure. Instead, he goes to Doctor Strange and then makes him make this like complex spell that could destroy the entire universe. So the inciting incident pisses me off as well. Like, I get how it was meant to be more comedic,
yes.
but it's like, really? That's what you did? Really? So,
Mhm.
and yeah, I don't know. I could go on and on and on about it. That's my stance on the MCU. And speaking of the MCU, what is Marvel even doing anymore? Because I remember the first original phases being amazing. First three phases of the Infinity Saga, beautiful. They were poignant and what they wanted to tell. No, they became more not stereotypical, sorry, like comedic and like almost the Marvel way, if that makes sense. That's what I mean by
Yeah,
stereotypical. It's like this is the Marvel stamp. Then we have this event where there's a villain, and then we have jokes and jokes and jokes that we defeat the villain. So, whereas if we go into phase one had each distinct character, and all
mhm.
of them felt very different from a filming's perspective. You had Iron Man 1 and 2, nothing like it for the time. Then we had the Incredible Hulk, and we could talk about the Hulk all the time. I personally liked Mark Ruffalo's interpretation. Oh no, was it Mark Ruffalo? No, Ed Norton. Sorry, Ed Norton's interpretation. Ed Norton to me was the best Hulk. I don't care what people say. Eric Bana is very much a close second. Now that one was also like the Incredible Hulk was filmed very differently than Iron Man was, and then we get into Captain America, and who was it? Thor, right? Who had Kenneth Branagh as um the film, like the director for that film. And each one of those films was very distinct in how they directed them. Then we get into the second phase, and they just built on about that and how they wanted it to be darker, as well as a comedic thing. And then the third phase became more comedic, and then we got phase four, which is a I don't even know what they're doing anymore. I actually like have almost put my own stance that I don't want to continue watching Marvel, like the MCU anymore, because it's actually ag- like angering me so much. What is your point on it?
I ditto. I agree with everything you just said. Marvel is getting tired at this point. It realistically should have ended after the Infinity Saga. That was the proper place to cut this story in its entirety, in my opinion. Or maybe to cut the main overarching theme and then just have fun with smaller characters, which I guess is, to be fair, what they've done. But yeah, I can't say I'm thrilled with the most recent movies. Quantumania does not look like a great movie, although maybe better than Ant Man and the Wasp. But I still, yeah, I can't say I've been thrilled with a lot of the Disney Plus shows. I didn't even bother checking out She Hulk, and What If disappointed me within 10 minutes of starting it. Um, yeah, so I'm gonna be getting my Marvel fix from the comic books because I'm kind of I don't know, just don't have interest in the movies anymore.
I feel like Disney has well, Phase Four is almost nicknamed the MCU because of how much they rely on the feminist movement, as well as I don't know, they kind of just use like every um leftist thing to they try to exploit all of those ideologies to make more money, which I think is wrong in its own sensitive in a way because they're just like, yeah, let's just make it so it's all female, but then not even like actually expand to make them good written characters. They just want to put a female and then put the most stereotypical BS out there. That's it's almost like it's super disingenuous, and it's actually more of a mockery than it is of an actual good story. Does that make sense? You get that from them as well?
They're making more like a goofy Spy Kids spoof at this point more than an actual self-serious story. It's there the jokes have become just obnoxious at this point. The CGI is in the toilet because they have ununionized workers who are being treated like shit, and the writing is just getting confused and tired as far as what they want to. They don't know what they want to do with it or what direction they want to take it in. Um, yeah, and also I just say like maybe it's just the characters, but I feel like the replacements they had for the Avengers just they didn't spend enough time in the earlier phases developing them
Hmm.
because they were more focused on the other elements of them, which means that like now that these characters are gone, the new replacements they have in the MCU for the original Avengers just aren't as likable. Like I'm gonna be honest, I don't care that much about for example, like War Machine or about like Falcon or about let's say like yeah, oh, I don't know, like Vision. These
Like
characters just aren't as
Captain Marvel, Vision, Scarlet Witch, a lot of the characters that are more downplayed, essentially. Like they don't
yeah,
have a significant story to them.
like
Yeah,
and
they
honestly,
almost
like
need the pairings.
I've never in my life, I don't even know if they print them, picked up a comic book that had Vision on the cover. Like
True.
that's not what I go for. Um, the only thing, I mean, I like reading Spider-Man comics. I like Doctor Strange, and I like I or I say would like to see the Silver Surfer. If they bring Silver Surfer in, Stan Lee and I both love that guy. One of the best Marvel characters. But he's only exists inside a bad
Yeah,
2004 film. So, I mean, yeah, I can or 2007 film, sorry.
that was a
But
bad. That was a
it was
bad film.
so yeah, I guess with that kind of being understood, I think yeah, I think I gotta yeah, I gotta give you your due and say you're right. The MCU has kind of been in the toilet, so is the DCU. Um yeah, with Black Adam and all their nonsense. Um so yeah, no, I can't say I'm gonna be seeing many Marvel movies from here on out.
Yeah, fair enough, and that's like a fair statement. However, I will say I am pretty excited for what DC has to offer. Well, Despite the many controversies that have transpired with Ezra Miller and who was another actor that was like taken out as well, because
Oh,
there was a
Henry
couple of them, and I can't quite.
Henry
Oh
Cavill.
well, no, like Henry Cavill was taken out. No, I mean like controversies. I
Oh,
mean like
okay.
in terms of like problems with actors, because I remember Ezra Miller was a huge one.
Oh, Amber Heard.
I feel like there was more. Oh yes, Amber Heard. Yes, I forgot about that too.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know what
well, yeah,
shows.
like I don't know. I feel like there is a lot of issues with many of the some of the actors that they choose. However, they're overarching things. Like it seems like they're trying to do like separate films, almost like noir films, like the Batman. They've created Joker. They're trying to kind of do that, and I feel like they're trying to do a reset with the new Flash movie. That's why they just want to put it out. Not that because trying to reshoot that movie with the amount of money they spent in it is just going to be like a financial disaster. And I think if they just put it out, and make it a reset with a different Flash, that's how they can progress. I'm more looking forward to what DC has to offer at this point than what Marvel has to offer. What do you think on
Mm, I. It's tough to say because I'm gonna honest, I'm not really a huge fan of James Gunn's turns either. The DC lineup, nothing particularly excited me. I don't like the idea of a young Superman. That's one of the most uninteresting concepts they could have gone with. Um, yeah, the creature commandos just look kind of goofy. I mean, it looks like his style, but still, like, just not yeah, not my cup of tea. Yeah, I don't know. I can't say I'm too pumped for the. I don't know unless I'm missing something, but the DCU lineup doesn't look too interesting either. Other than I think they're doing Green Lantern, which they might be able to do justice. Um, yeah, so that could be a valid move.
Yeah, I definitely think that yeah, I feel like that through them expanding and trying to like actually like look at all their other characters because I think what they really fucked up on was how they rushed the beginning. They just wanted to beat Marvel. That's all they cared about. I think that's where they fell down the rabbit hole of trying to that they can't escape out of. And I think they just need to reboot the entire universe. I think that's what they're trying to do.
Yes,
See,
yes, that's
so
true.
I have a little bit of hope in them. I hope that they actually go through with it and that well they already did confirm that that's what they're doing. It sucks that they got Henry Cavill out of the role of Superman because I think he didn't have enough time. I didn't like Man of Steel that much, but I saw what they were trying to do and I reward them with the efforts that they've made. I just hope I don't know, I just feel bad because he was just stoical to the point where he doesn't even say anything half the time. So we never really got a true Superman either. So everybody's like, "Oh, he was the best Superman." I'm like, "But we didn't even get that much time with him, nor did we get, like, really any dialogue out of him. He doesn't have a point of view. He just looks stoically everywhere." Does that make sense? Like, I get why people are mad. I guess I thought he looked the character and he could act the character, but didn't have that opportunity. So I understand people's frustrations
Yeah,
toward that
yeah.
decision.
He wasn't given the opportunity. I have to agree with that. They didn't really give him the chance he deserved. Yeah, I don't know what direction they really should. I think honestly, I know what direction. If they're gonna do DC, I think the way to do it is to give heroes isolated stories. I don't think
Or
a DCU is even a good idea. Let Superman be in his optimistic sunshine, hopeful universe. Let Batman be in his dark, rained out, insane asylum of a city. And let let Wonder Woman be in her kind of like Star Spangled War movies, and Green Lantern have his Star Wars space adventure. That's my opinion on the DC universe. I don't think trying to glue it all together really makes sense as a movie strategy. But hey, I guess a lot of people would disagree with me on that though.
no, I agree. I think that that's what they need to do. They need to just focus on like isolating the characters and focus on what makes them unique. And that's what they're missing. They keep wanting to do like these group mashups. And I don't want to see that anymore. Marvel did a great bit, and but you saw the unfortunate circumstance that they were coming due to this obsession with the group, formation, and that how Phase 3 was very rough. lot of ways because they're just like, oh, Ant Man, let's just automatically connect them to the MCU. Oh, Spider Man, let's automatically make him connected to the MCU. You know what I mean? It was like, let's see how many names we could throw out and how many symbols we could throw out to connect the universe. And it became more of a like, oh, let's actually show this individual story like we did with the first phase to being, let's just throw it in your face about how this is a connected universe. And that
Mhm.
frustrated me a lot. So I agree with you. I hope that they go into this more singular storyline point. And I
Yeah,
want to see that more often. I hope James Gunn has the skills to offer that. But yeah, so well, other than that, I think we've discussed everything personally. And I think
yeah,
that's a good point to end the podcast on, would you say?
I would say so.
All right, well, sounds good, man. Well, once again, I want to thank you very much for your time. I love
Oh,
talking
no
to you as
problem.
always.
It's always
And
good to
I very much enjoy like hearing your opinions on various topics. So thank you very much.
Oh, no
Um,
problem. Yeah, it's good to
other than
hear
that,
about
for everybody that's listening, oh,
I just said it's good to hear your
sorry, what'd
insights.
you say?
I just said
Oh
it's
yeah,
good to
well,
hear.
thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, yes, I know. Thank you very much. But yeah, well, anybody who's listening to the podcast, I strongly recommend that you go and see the Triangle Button channel on YouTube. I go through various playthroughs. I have you know, quite a bit of games like right now, like that I'm playing. I've got the Dark Pictures anthology, Spider Man, you whatever you can name it, I have on there, as well as to go and check out the other podcast episodes, as we have wonderful conversations each time to have a lot of diverse opinions on topics. So without further ado, we're going to conclude right now. So have a good
Have a
day.
good